Welcome to the final speed and agility component of your athletic development program. In this, we're going to change some of the processes and the protocols that we have been doing just to create a bit of stimulus and also some options in your training. But I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and we're going to talk you through the first component. It is a warm-up, it is our athletic development warm-up, and it should tie into everything that we do after this. So the first one, we're going to do a little bit of hurdle work just to open up the hips for what we're about to do later on. So I've got a dowel here. So the dowel is going to be overhead in all these motions, right? The reason for the overheadness is to create a bit of extension through the thoracic spine, a bit of tension through the upper body, which then demands more of the hip to create the range. Because sometimes if we don't have the upper body and we go over hurdles like we're about to do, sometimes you can collapse through the spine, and then that creates less demand on the hip. So hand over head in all these. And the first one, we're going to step over and bring our hip around, right? So we're going to show you here how to do it. Bring it around. Good. Obviously there are no hurdles here. We're just showing you there's some cones, and the same thing applies if you do or don't have hurdles. It's just getting that range and getting that motion through. So up, over, kick through the hamstring and bring the hip around. And like I said, you don't have to have hurdles to do this. You can just use cones. You can just imagine they're there and trying to get the hip through that range. And then on the other one, you come back, you just do the other side first, so the other leg leads, and then the other hip has to come around. So each hip is sort of doing a different motion. And bring the hip around. That's good. Perfect. Great control. Hand is overhead. Just remind yourself every time to bring that hand overhead. Nice and tall from the spine. Good. And then we walk back in. Perfect. That's great. And then we're going to go side over, hand over our head again, and we're going to go up and over with each leg. Keep your hand over your head. Keep your hand over your head. Good. Now this is obviously a bit more lateral of the hip, so a bit more outside of the hip, more glute med than glute max. Good. Over. Control it over. That's good. Take your time through all these. A bit of focus and a bit of attention on these exercises. We're going to help you now for what we're about to do. It just frees up the hip. And then the last one is, the other one. So there's another one after this. Is just facing away or facing the other way. It's the same thing. Hand over your head. So nice, good posture here, nice and tall through the movement. Yep. Good. In fact, sometimes this can be a little bit better than having hurdles because you're demanding the range to come from your own intent behind the exercise, because sometimes the hurdles can be quite big, and if you're a very tall person you probably don't get the right stimulus, and if you're a shorter person maybe it's too much for you that you overcompensate. So sometimes having no hurdles and getting the right range is a good thing. So turn around and do this one where you open up the hip behind yourself. A little bit of coordination needed here as you step back, and then bring the other hip around. Good. Now step with the other foot. Now step with the left foot back first, yeah, and then the right foot back. And then go right foot back first, open up the hip, and then the left foot back, and just alternate that, right? So lead with the left, lead with the right. Yep, and open up the hip. And as you can see, the left hip needs a little bit more, really. You can find that in yourself. So the right hip has got good range. The left hip, when it has to lead, is less of a range there. So it's something to work on as you're going through the exercise. Feel which one is a little bit tight and give it that bit more attention. Okay, now we're going to go on to our A skips and B skips. So our A skips, again, same thing, but overhead, hands overhead on our A skips. So hands overhead and get into your A skips. Balls of your feet hits the floor, punching down, a lot of force to the floor. Keep going to the blues, and then relax. Good. So I want you to do 2 A skips, so we'll do that again. We won't do it again here, but do it again at home or on the pitch, wherever you are, and then into your B skips. So we're going to our B skips here, hands overhead. It's a bit more of a cyclic action now, coming around, balls of the foot still hits the floor, but yes, that's cyclic action, coming around, and hitting the balls of your feet. Good. So our A skips are kind of more of our acceleration drill, so therefore more short, sharp, because it's that pistol action motion that we're going through with lots of force into the floor. And our B skips then are more like our maximum speed, because the foot was going to come around, hit the floor underneath your center mass, and then push you up as well as forward. Okay, so you got those done, and that's your warm up done. Feel free to do a little bit more if you feel you need to, but now we're going to go on to our speed work, right? So We've done our maximum speed with long rest. We're now at the phase where I'd like you to challenge your speed over 40 meters, so lower than the last block, but short rest. It's only 10 seconds rest, right? So we don't have to do we just do a 140 meter run. So we don't have 40 meters in here, but just to the purpose of what I'm going to talk about. So we do a 40 meter run, yeah, out to the last white. So all the mechanics that we've just been doing do help. You're going to just stay on the second white one. So come up to the second white one there. Yeah, just that little tag there. And rest there. So it's a 10-second rest. I'm going to do a final one then to the end. So 10-second rest and then go again. And depending whether you're an advanced athlete or just the adult or whatever phase you're in, select what you deem appropriate. And sometimes training might be very hard, so you can't do a lot of these. But I've put down 8 repetitions on this. You might do 1 block or you might do 2 blocks depending how training's been. And yes, it's not speed development. Speed development comes where you have long rest and almost you're fully rested because you have to go maximum effort and you have to have maximum recovery for true speed development. But there's a need in your sport to be able to output consistently high forces and consistently high speed work with minimal rest, and this is what this training is for. All the reps and sets and everything else will be on a PDF depending on whether you're adult or advanced. Okay, so once you've done your speed work, you have your breather and you have a rest, and you have a 3-minute rest, and then you come on to your agility component, right? So it's same as the last block. Yeah, so come over a minute. So same as the last block, we set up sort of 9 cones, right? So what we have here is obviously we're in a gym, so we can't go as expansive as you might do at home, but make sure these are about 7 meters apart, right? So the 7 meters between each of the cones. So it's a 9, so you can see 1, 2, 3 on this line, 3 on this line, and 3 on his line. And the first one I want you to do is the diamond. So you'll stand on here. Remember what I always talk to you about is acceleration mechanics always. So when we're moving forward, we have that back step, drop step, that creates that nice forward lean for the body to get the hands in position. Now my center of mass is over center of mass is ahead of me. So then I can push down into the floor and almost catch myself from falling over, which creates the pistol action that we're looking for in acceleration. Same thing should apply here, but now I'm going the diamond, so I'm going across to the middle one. It's the middle one in each one, across here, coming to the middle one here, the top one, middle one finally here, and then back to center again. So it's kind of those 45 degree, like 90 degree cuts and taking off a different side. What I want you to do is go 2 on your left and then 2 on your right. Okay, so we'll talk them through this one. Now, with the cones, right, they're a reference point. We don't run around cones in a game, and I don't want us to get used to just running around cones, and I want to use them just as a reference, right? So you're going to sprint from here, no, don't go yet, and just kind of come, and you're touching it almost with your feet as opposed to going down and touching it with your hand, because in the sport that we're playing, okay, we have to pick up the ball sometimes, but I don't really want you to go down and you're not going to pick up off the floor with your hand. I want you to just get to the cone, get nice low center of gravity, get to the cone with your feet more than your hands, and then make those components hit. Now, from the start position, make sure you're in a good athletic position. So although you know where you're going left or right, I want you to practice getting good from this position. Don't be in a predisposed position to go already, because yes, that's an advantage for this drill, but it's not an advantage for your sport. So get into a good athletic position and then drive off the right side on here, or the left side, whichever you prefer, but I'd recommend the right side here. If I'm going that way, I drive off my left side. Okay, let's do two repetitions. So when you're ready, get into a good position, sprinting off to your left, getting close, sprinting and sprinting back and decelerating. On this one here, and I should have said it, just decelerate to a stop, because we want to practice excel, decel, because at the kind of cuts that we're doing, we do decelerate each time on each one and decelerate finally on the last one. Okay, we'll do one more going the other way and decelerate finally on here. Yeah, good mechanics, pushing off the back foot, good. Now it's very hard for us to emphasize proper mechanics because it's such a small and tight area, but when you got the 7 meters, you'll feel it and you'll see it as well. And a good deceleration on here. Remember, the deceleration mechanics is nice wide base of support, showing one hip in front of the other, not being too square, because in a game, if you just practice being square, it's easy for a component to go left and right, or opponent to go left and right. Showing them one way allows you to be more advantageous if they go out here, but also I'm comfortable going on that side as well. But kind of slower down their options. Okay, that's the first one, and the second one is what I call the claw. So that was the diamond. The claw now is, I'm just moving that as well to show you that you don't want the cone under your feet because that can compromise the acceleration mechanics. So I'm going to go out to this one here. I'm going to decelerate. I'm going to sprint back to the start. I'm coming out to the middle. I'm back to the start. I'm out to the right one. I'm back to the start, and as I hit this cone here, and then I'm sprinting out to the top one out here. So that'll be 14 meter of a sprint out to the top. So 7 and back, 7 and back, 7 and back, and then out to the 14. You're only going to do this once, don't worry, I won't kill you here. Okay, so out to the 7 and back, out forward and back. So now what's happening here is good acceleration mechanics. You have to accelerate, you have to decelerate, turn back, and you do that obviously 3 times, and then a final sprint forward. Okay, let's have a go. Good position. Nice and low, good, press into the middle, good, press back, turn, nice turn, press back, and then all the way out to the 7 meter sprint. Perfect. Now, just when you do these, you'll have a preferred drive off the foot, so make sure you practice the other one, and when you decelerate on a cone, you probably have a preferred side to decelerate on. Make sure you mix it up. Practicing both sides is important. And the final sprint, when you come here, you'll obviously drive it more so off your left if you're coming from this side. But make sure you start on the other side as well, so you do both repetitions. Okay, you'll do that a certain amount of times depending on whatever's on the PDF and depending on training as well. Please self-select how much of this you need, and the final one is the finisher, right? So I want you to hit, so you're starting on the 0 cone, so this one, and I want you to hit every cone in any way you want to do it, but you have to touch every cone. Now some cones you'll have to go twice, but you have to hit every cone, and you can only go in like a 90 degrees. So you can't go from here and cut across all the way here. You got to keep turning on each cone. So if I hit this cone, I got to turn here. If I hit this cone, I got to turn left or right. If I hit this one, I can only go across myself. So it's only like a 90 degree cut that I want you to do, rather than do the corners and then do the diamond. Yeah, so that's the only stipulation here. So out, left or right, every time. So we're going to practice this. I'm going to show you on a repetition. On the PDF we have 6 of these to finish off your training with a 1 minute rest in between. Okay, off we go. So out, good, to our left or right again, good, yep, good, yep, a few more to do, good, and finish. Now, okay, as we're doing this, just make sure you hit every cone, but if you have to double up on each one, you've not made a mistake, because you have to double up to hit all the cones. And it's just continuous work for around 30 seconds it'll be, with a 1 minute rest. So the ratio is kind of 30 on and 1 minute rest. So you get plenty of rest, should be fairly fresh going into it. But it's just that dogged training where you have to press and press and press. And you know those moments in the game where you just have to, it's like you're chasing your tail, but you have to do it for the team. And that's basically what we're trying to emphasize here, is that it's just kind of an aggressive, it's worst case scenario based training almost, to kind of empty the tank after you're doing lots of good mechanics, longer rest, proper movement and stuff. It's just kind of a dogged sort of training about turns and change of direction which your game demands, and some games are really intense to prepare you for that. Okay, that was the final block, that was the final program, if you like. If you have any questions, please feel to fire them out to either Santa or myself. We'd be happy to answer your questions, but I hope you enjoyed it. Keep the training up and keep this complementary support in your training going, and just because the program's finished doesn't mean you can't keep supplementing this throughout your season.